And welcome everybody to this edition here of the Mass Steel Podcast. Right now with me, Charles Prodigy Richey, and joining me currently on the line right now as we got here. I got returning friend of the show here. He is of course the writer for at CBS Sports, national writer. As he got promoted earlier this past year, back in August, as a matter of fact. You may remember seeing him online on Facebook Live throughout the season and during the off season. I'm talking about none other than Bryan DeArdo. He can be followed on Twitter at Bryan DeArdo for at CBS Sports. Right now, he has joined me here to do a little brief recap of the first half of the season. Right now, we got a lot to get into right now, and some much more as he is being joined on the phone right now. Bryan, I hope your night's going well, and how you been lately, my man?
It is. It is. Thank you for asking, and thank you for allowing me to be on your show. Watching the World Series at the moment, and also looking at a couple of games this weekend that will help determine who gets the first overall pick of the draft. Happy to report that in any of those games, they are not in that conversation. As they've done a nice job turning around their season after 0-3 start.
That is true. I mean, I definitely feel like right now they're probably one of the hottest teams right now who can make a run despite everything. I mean, just for the simple fact they have been top and we'll get into that thought in just a second. But since you mentioned it, I gotta say, I mean, looking back at that move right there, surrendered like a first and I believe it was a third round pick to get a guy like Mika Fitzpatrick. And it was on the same day too that after it was announced earlier in the morning, the devastating news, which a lot of people felt was gonna be the biggest blow felt for that team, was with Ben Roethlisberger for the first time in his career being out for the season, where this injury was going to keep him down for good. And I'm talking about like the throwing elbow right there. And the thing was, I really felt like for the Steelers to get a guy like Mika Fitzpatrick, I'm sure they had to have confirmation from Ben Roethlisberger that he was going to still go ahead and try and give it another go around next off season when he tries to recover. He still wants to honor his contract. So I really feel like, in my opinion, I don't know about you, made the decision a little bit more easier. You know what? Let's get it. It's something that we're going to need anyway coming up in next year's draft, more than likely to address. You saw how Cam Kelly did awfully in the first game. And then, I mean, this is one of the things that still continues to be suspect is their secondary. Say you.
I think in general, the Steelers, this Sunday's game, I think, will determine whether or not they're contenders or pretenders. I think, when they got to 1-4, I pretty much was resigned to the fact that they won't make the playoffs, and even a winning season seems very, very dim. Now at 3-4, now I'm thinking 9-7 could be a legit possibility. I still don't think. I think the ceiling is 9 wins. I still don't see this team, only losing 2 more games from here on out. There's too much football left to say that. I don't think is realistic, even though it's not impossible, obviously. I think when you look at their schedule, you break it down. I think that they've got to win 1 out of their next 2 between Indy and LA, and I really think it's Indy. I think if you can beat a Colts team that's 6-2 but flawed, with Jacoby Brissett under center. I mean, them, like the Steelers, lost, their franchise quarterback. Andrew Luck obviously retired before the season started. But the Colts, they are a flawed team. They lost to Oakland earlier this season. They're about middle of the pack in the league in most categories, but they're a very fundamentally sound team. They do a good job protecting Brissett. They don't beat themselves often. But if they can win this game, get themselves to 4-4, then I really like their chances at getting 9 wins. They got to go 1-1 between Indy and the Rams. Then after that, you've got Cleveland, Cincinnati, and Cleveland again. You go 2-1 during that stretch. I think now then you're really cooking with gas. But I think the 2 weeks that are vital is at Arizona and then versus the Bills. I think those are the 2 games that are going to make or break the Steelers season, because I think they should be able to handle the Jets in Baltimore on the road in Week 17. The way I look at Week 17, that's essentially going to be a playoff game. So you want to be 8-7 or at least 8-7 going into that game, if not 9-6. So to set that up, you go 1-1. the next 2 games, at least 2-1 in that 3-game stretch against the Ohio teams. And you got to win both those games, at Arizona, and then you've got the Bills at home. And I think the Bills are going to start to fit you, Charles. I think they're a good team, but you saw it this Sunday against Philly. Their offense is so limited. If you can get the lead against them and make the Bills a comeback team, that's really not their forte. But yeah, I think this week is going to be, the biggest measuring stick of their season. I'm not ready to talk playoffs yet with the Steelers. I got to get through Sunday's game.
Yeah, and you know what? And I kind of have to agree with you for right now. I mean, obviously, me following this team, I just been encouraged by the fact that they've been tops in takeaways up to this point, which has been really surprised right there. You got an aggressive defense right now who's really played formidable as a unit. But the only problem is, how Mike Tomlin always gets the knock. I mean, when he plays against losing teams, this is going back since 2012, but it was mainly on the road. He is like two games under 500 in that regard, where he's like 12-14 overall in his career. He's 20. He is right now overall 53-26. But the biggest thing is too, the thing that's ironic about it is that he has a tremendous record against winning teams. 26 games over 500. That's most by any Steeler coach in Steeler history. You got Bill Cowher, who's 3 games over 500 when it comes to that. And, of course, Chuck Noll, 24 games under 500 before and after his Super Bowl dynasty was formed and moved on. So, and the biggest surprising thing, like I was getting back to that, with the winning team part, is that they haven't won one game against a winning team this year, which may have some people may want to just slam on the brakes or just hold on just a moment. I mean, I agree. If they could get this win Sunday, it'll be like the first statement win of the season, if you really think about it, despite what the stats may say.
Yeah, I think this would be the most impressive win of the season for sure. Because you've got Frank Wright, who in his own right, I would say, is one of the front runners for Coach of the Year. I think Tomlin should get credit if the Steelers can get to 9 or 10 wins. Definitely 9 wins, at least, I think would render some consideration, even though he won't win it. Because still, even though they lost Ben, people are going to look at their talent across the board. All the number 1 picks on the defensive side of the ball, Juju Smith-Schuster, James Conner, that offensive line. I think people, as crazy as this sounds, Charles, I think people would still expect the Steelers to be a 8 or 9 win team, even without Ben. Again, just because of all the talent they have on both sides of the ball. But yeah, I mean, if they can beat this team, I think that's going to go a long way. Again, the Colts are not a elite team. I think they're a quality playoff team. I mean, if the season ended right now, I believe they're in first place in the South, even though it's tight. I mean, Houston's good. I think, honestly, Jacksonville is going to make a run. I think they'll finish 8-8 just out of the playoffs. But I think, they're in one of the most competitive divisions in the NFL because you've got Houston in there too. 5-3. They lost J.J. Watt this weekend. They're a tough nugget. But I think overall the Colts are the best team in that division. T.Y. Hilton did not practice today, so that's going to be something to look out for. I think he's obviously going to play, but he won't be at full strength. Their running game is tough, but I think, to me, this game is not going to come down to what the Steelers' defense does against the Colts' offense. I think they're going to have to get turnovers. I think that's obviously something that, Steeler fans have come to expect this season. A, that the defense is going to get turnovers, but B, it's not a luxury. It's a necessity that the defense gets turnovers. They're not going to win if the Steelers' defense does not record a turnover. I don't have that kind of faith in Mason Rudolph. It's going to come down to whether or not Mason Rudolph and this offense can grow up. I think that's going to be the key. I was pretty patient with the Mason Rudolph-led offense for a while, but I've run out of patience. The worst team in the league, the Dolphins, had a 14-0 lead against the Steelers on Monday, largely because that offense cannot start out strong. I don't think the Steelers' offense this season has scored on either of their first 2 possessions this season. I could be wrong, but I don't. If you looked at the point differential in the first quarter, the Steelers have to be outscored pretty considerably in the first quarter. That's what got them against Seattle. Ben got hurt. That's obviously what hurt them against New England. it's hurt them in all their games, even the ones they've been, with the exception of the Chargers game. That's the only game where the defense came out strong, gave them an early lead with Devin Bush leading the way there. So, the Steelers aren't going to win. If the Steelers start the way on Sunday, the way they did on Monday, they will not win. And they'll probably give up at least 30 points. Because the Colts, and that's something that the Colts right now are talking about. They watched the film of Monday's game, and they probably watched the game live, and they said, hey, if we get up on this team, we're going to keep them down. That's what we'll do. And I expect the Colts to be very against the Steelers, try to get an early lead and then settle in. But yeah, Mason, I'm not as critical on him as I think a lot of other people are. But yeah, his offense has to start playing better early, because if they don't, then they might not win more than 7 games this season.
Again, the number, if you guys want to get in on the conversation feel free to call in after the interview with Bryan DeArdo. That's 312-209-2232. Again, that's 312-209-2232. You can also follow me on Twitter at Prodigy Richey, and as well as my Twitter pages and Instagram, which is at MetaSteelCJR, at OnDeckCSR. And we're getting ready to transition right now. Thank you very much, by the way, for doing the kind honors of starting off with the Steelers here. And now let's move on to some other stuff right now. And speaking of coaches, I remember you alluded to Mike Tomlin like about almost a month ago about him being on the Redskins wish list with Daniel Snyder. But aside from Mike Tomlin right now, who we could probably pretty clear see his time will get close to an end, maybe sooner than we think. But currently, as of right now, if you had to choose between these group of names, or if you have a wild card you want to add in there, which coach do you think is under the most pressure with the team they got, the talent they got to win now? Would you say Andy Reid of the Chiefs, Matt Nagy, Jason Garrett, Mike Zimmer of the Vikings, or who would be your outside choice? So again, it's Andy Reid, Matt Nagy, Jason Garrett, Mike Zimmer, or who would you add to that list?
I think Sean McVay. Because, he has a team that was just in the Super Bowl. They lost by 3 points. I think that, with the Ramsey acquisition, I think they're trying to keep that window open. They're in full win now mode. And, it's kind of funny because, not necessarily funny, but, Todd Gurley is still a relatively young man, a young NFL player. His body's already pretty much breaking down, and they can't use him the way they used to. So they're in the NFL's toughest division, the West. You've got Seattle, San Francisco, Los Angeles. They're all kind of vying for just a couple of playoff spots, and I don't think one of those teams is not going to make the playoffs. The Niners are making it, so now it's down to Seattle or San Francisco, the Rams. And today, I think the Rams would be the third place. They'd be the third place team because Seattle has 2 losses. The Niners don't have any losses yet. So I think it's McVay. His job's not in jeopardy by any means. But, they're in Los Angeles, which right now they're getting good fan support. But, I remember when the Raiders were there and they stopped winning. It can get pretty stale in L.A. pretty quick. And, again, they're going to get that new stadium and everything. And I think that does add to the pressure of McVay to keep the popularity in L.A. going, to keep that team winning. And again, they just went out to get Ramsey, which was a message that, we're not going to lay down here. And, Goff, I think the verdict's still out on him. I think with Nagy, I think the Bears know that he might not be the answer. So I don't think and obviously Nagy's getting a lot of grief right now, but I don't think it's all directed at him. I think that they know that the issue could potentially be the quarterback. And again, they're in one of the toughest divisions too. They've got the Vikings, they've got the Lions, who I think the Lions will be probably the best team that doesn't make the playoffs. Them or the Rams, if the Rams don't make it, because the Lions are a tough team. They need more weapons on offense, but that's neither here nor there. But yeah, I think it's either Nagy or Sean McVay. Andy Reid's Andy Reid. He'll be with the Chiefs until he has he's got a young quarterback, and he's got tenure, and I don't think the Chiefs are looking to get rid of him at all. So, obviously Reid's getting up there in age. I don't know how much longer he wants to coach, But in terms of like hot seat or anything, Andy Reid's seat is pretty cold.
Yeah, I think I could definitely agree with that. I mean, for the time being, but I mean, at the same time, too, I mean, you look at, I mean, because you got your star quarterback right now who's actually hurt right now. I mean, with the ankle and stuff, or the knee, I should say, excuse me. But I mean, you look at that situation right now, it's a lot. I mean, things right now they had invested, I mean, built around knowing how close they came up. But speaking of which, right now, too, and we talk about the Chiefs, and real quick, I just want to just wrap up with this thought real quick here. So you mentioned about the Rams, and I remember hearing this too, as far as like their stadium goes, is that it's going to like more than likely be a factor into the next CBA, because it's going to be right now their stadium is going to be like just under $5 billion right now. How much do you think that plays a factor as far as like the CBA negotiations and around the league or the market going up? Just in general with that, with their new stadium coming out in Carson.
I think that'll probably raise. I think there's going to be a lot of things that change with the CBA, and I don't think there's going to be a stoppage, but I think there will for sure be threats of a stoppage. I think the medical marijuana is something the players fight for. The 17-game season is going to be one of the biggest fights. And I think the expansion of the salary cap that is absolutely going to happen. I mean, with or without the 17-game season, there's going to be a lot of pushback from the players. There's going to be a lot of changes, Charles. I think this will be the face of the NFL. The NFL will never be the same after these CBAs. I think that the players will get the medical marijuana. There will be a lot of restrictions on that, but I think that they will get some sort of medical marijuana. I think that the league is going to push for a 17-game schedule. I think the players are going to hold strong, and they're going to win, and there will not be another game added. I think that there might be another bye week added. I think that's something that you might see, because I think it's needed. I think that, in my perfect world, the regular season would go down to 14 games, and you'd add, playoffs right now, 12 teams make it, so maybe you add, make it 16 teams.
Right.
When the NFL gets its extra money that they would get from a 17-game season without having to add the 17 games. And I think that for sure the salary cap's going to go up. And I think players in general are going to push for more no trade clauses in their contracts. I think they're going to push for more power because, they're seeing the power the NBA players have. They see the money the NBA players make. In general, the NFL players want to have more of the same luxuries the NBA players are having right now. So I think that, and obviously with the stadium, that's revenue, more money. Players are going to be getting compensated a lot more in a few years than they are now.
Yeah, and speaking of which, too, because I remember one thing that was brought up. I mean, we're talking about. Sorry about that, by the way. Was like an expansion of the playoffs, possibly. And speaking of playoffs, right now, you got a team right now who's like picking up where they left off from the Super Bowl, the New England Patriots. Not a surprise there, but more importantly with the defense. And you got a mastermind like Bill Belichick, the way they've been doing. They've been playing lights out football up to this point. And you got their matchup coming up this Sunday night as the Ravens will be returning off their bye, which will be in Baltimore. And here's how their schedule goes. 5 out of their remaining 8 games will be against playoff teams coming up. That will be at Baltimore, at Philadelphia, at home when they host the Cowboys, in Houston, and then when they host the Chiefs. Out of those teams right there, which one do you think has like the real legitimate shot to probably like put a dink in the Patriots season? Notice how I went opposite there, Chris Collinsworth with the terminology, by the way.
The Eagles. I mean, I'm sorry, the Ravens. I mean, the Eagles are all right. I think they could be a team that upsets New England. I mean, obviously, I know the two teams are different, but I mean, Peterson showed that he can beat them. He beat them in the Super Bowl. And I think that the Eagles are starting to turn things around. I was honestly pretty down on them most of the season, and now I actually finally picked them to win a game in my weekly picks, which you can see on CBS.com, sports.com. This week, by the way, is the hardest week so far to pick games. There's so many tough games. It's ridiculous. Jacksonville, Houston, a lot of really tough games like that. But I think Baltimore, and I think if they played in the playoffs, I think Baltimore could win. To me, I don't see Baltimore beating New England on Sunday because I just think that New England's defense is going to limit the amount of plays that Jackson makes out of the pocket. But you don't know. I mean, this is the biggest test the Patriots' defense has faced so far. To me, it's going to come down to what the Ravens' defense can do, because they obviously made enough plays against the Steelers to win. They've made enough plays down the stretch this season to win a lot of games. I mean, you look at what they did in Seattle. I mean, that's a tough place to play. And I think the Ravens they're one of my favorite teams of the season. I love the Marcus Peters acquisition. I think Humphreys and Earl Thomas are very good. That's a very good secondary that's coming together after they allowed 73 points in a 2-week span earlier in the season. I love the Mark Ingram acquisition. Hollywood Brown just has to stay healthy, and they need to find another number 2 receiver. I really like Mark Andrews. I think that Baltimore, if any team is going to get to the Super Bowl out of the AFC that's not New England, it's Baltimore. After that, Kansas City. But their defense isn't good. They're 30th against the run. And as long as you have that big of a weakness on your team, you're not beating Belichick.
And not that, too. Let's not forget, too, I mean, the Lamar Jackson element, too. I mean, which first and foremost is like the utmost, like icing on the cake for this team right here. I mean, a lot of people are questioning how long he's going to be able to keep it up with the mobility he has, the way he could escape pressure and take off and run. I mean, some people are like drawing comparisons him to like Michael Vick in some ways. He's on pace to get like over like 3,300 yards in passing right now as he goes into that game, maybe a little bit more. But I mean, with that regard too, right now, who do you find right now as a surprise team out both the NFC and the NFC?
You mean surprise team?
Yeah, I mean, so versus like last year's playoff team, versus like last year's playoffs teams right now, and going into this year, up to what you saw in the halfway mark, who do you think has been like most impressive right now? Both the conferences.
That's tough. I mean, obviously you got to say San Francisco, obviously, but I want to give you, I think I don't want to keep. I mean, I without giving you the obvious, I really like what's happening in Minnesota. I think Cousins is still too inconsistent. He's got to prove to me that he can lead a team into the playoffs and do well in the playoffs. I don't think they're going to win, mostly because of his inexperience. But their defense with Zimmer is still really good. I love their running game. I love Dalvin Cook. Thielen and Diggs, great receiving duo there. I think Minnesota is going to get one of the wild card spots. I mean, the Packers are going to win that division. I think if I had to pick my top 4 in the NFC, I'm going to go Green Bay. I'm going to go, Seattle or Minnesota. I'm going to give the nod to Seattle mostly just because of Russell Wilson. I think Wilson is in my opinion, in the league MVP running. Him and Rodgers and Lamar Jackson. And I'm probably missing somebody else, but I think those are my top 3 right now. If I had to do like an MVP watch list, and I think the team that is going to come out of the NFC is going to be the Saints. I think that Drew Brees coming back now. He played really well on Sunday, but I think the more he gels and reignites himself with that offense, they're going to be tough to beat. Their defense is definitely good enough to win a Super Bowl. They're motivated after what happened last year. They're in position to either get the number 1 seed or the number 2 seed. I mean, it's going to be them or the Niners most likely. It's going to be so hard to get out of the NFC playoffs this year. I mean, I don't remember the last time there were so many good teams in the NFC, but I think Green Bay, Seattle, San Francisco, and New Orleans are the 4 best teams in the NFC, followed by the Rams. It's just such a loaded, and again, the Lions are a tough team. If they were in the AFC, I think they'd be in the playoffs. So I got the Saints coming out of NFC. Again, that's such a tough gauntlet. AFC, it's a lot different. I mean, I think it's New England, it's Baltimore, it's Kansas City, and there really, in my opinion, isn't a number 4 out there. It could be Pittsburgh, it could be Houston, I mean, Jacksonville is a scary team just because of what Minshew's doing. Him and Shark, Fournette, that defense is coming together. I mean, they're playing well, even though they lost Ramsey. But there's probably, at the top 10 teams in the NFL, I think 7 of them are in the NFC at least. The NFC is just so top heavy. That's why I think this year the NFC, whoever gets out of the NFC, I think is going to win the Super Bowl. They're going to be so battle tested and hardened. I think they're going to win whoever they play. So Steeler fans, be happy that your team is not in the NFC right now, and New England is not going to win their 7th ring this year. I don't think their offense is good enough. I think their defense has been bailing them out to this point. But if that defense starts to crack at all, I don't think that offense is going to bail them out.
Well, let's not forget, too, Brian, by the way, I mean, historically, when you look at the Steelers and their franchise history, before they went to the AFC, when it was the NFL and AFL, I mean, during like the start of the Super Bowl era when both leagues were competing, which, by the way, is in the 60th anniversary of the AFL as it coincides with the 100th anniversary of the NFL season. Remember, the Steelers were the lovable losers of the league at that point in time when there were like 84 games under 500 before they moved over to the AFC. So think about that for a second. And like I said, I told this to many people before. I think key people that helped turn that around, we had Dan Rooney, who came into the picture with his father, Art, who really helped do a good job of luring Chuck Noll away from the Baltimore Colts, drafting Mean Joe Green, Terry Bradshaw, your starter, Mike Webster, and some pieces later on like Franco Harris, Lynn Swann, Jack Lambert, Mel Blount, little by little. And ever since, I mean, they've been like around like a 53, 56 win percent team since that time. And I probably make the argument, if you look at them all time, you say, luckily they're not in the NFC, they probably wouldn't even have half as many the champs they have right now. Maybe 2, maybe 3, in my opinion.
I agree with that. I think that, again, kind of going back to the Steelers, you got to be excited right now if you're a Steelers fan.
No, I'm excited, though, but what I'm saying is, too, I mean, looking back from a historical perspective and, like, placing that how it fit in today, if they were able to go to, like if they were still to remain, like, an NFC franchise, I could definitely hear you where he's saying it'll definitely probably be not very much, like, hope to try and get into a playoff because you'd probably be either paired up with the Eagles in the NFC East or with the Bears in the NFC North right now if they did not move to the AFC during the Super Bowl merger right there, the NFL merger, I should say.
Oh, yeah, no doubt. Absolutely. If you're going to go all the way. If you want to talk history, the Steelers and Colts, again, I think one of the greatest AFC championship games of all time. A game that no one really ever talks about.
Are you talking about 1995, right?
Yeah, January 14th, 96. Yep. 20-16.
Well, the 95 season I was referring to.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Probably one of them. I mean, since then, I'm thinking Colts, Patriots, 90 or 06.
And they were both original NFL teams. There weren't true like AFL teams. You really think about it too.
Right. But yeah, I mean, the Colts really have not had any success in Pittsburgh in recent memory. I mean, they won there in 08 with Peyton Manning, but other than that, I think in the last 50 years, that's the only win they've had in Pittsburgh. So, kind of crazy. Andrew Luck never won there. I mean, Manning only won there once. I'll be playing Pittsburgh much, but yeah, I mean, this Steelers team has a lot. I really like what I'm seeing from Benny Snell. He is dealing with that knee injury, which is worrisome. Same with James Conner. But Jalen Samuels is back. He healed up super fast. People thought he'd be out for a month. It's only been 2 weeks. So, and I think that, Edmonds, the younger Edmonds at running back, Trey Edmonds will be all right if they need to plug him in. I think Benny will be okay. I think he can come in and play. But, I mean, it's crazy when you watch them on Monday night and you're seeing Benny Snell, rookie, making such an impact. Devin Bush, Deontay Johnson. I mean, and then Nick Vannett, who they traded for, earlier this month, who has been a significant addition. Minkah Fitzpatrick. I mean, that defense is set now. This is the best Steelers defense since the Polamalu era in 2011, 2012. So this is the best Steelers defense in 7 years. I know that, the first half of the 17 season, the Shazier-led defense was really strong. But I think this group is even better than that group because of their ability to get turnovers and get to the quarterback. So, I think Steeler fans should be really excited with what is to come. My biggest fear is what's going to happen at the quarterback position. What's going to happen to Ben, and Deontay has stepped up. He's the real deal. Juju is the real deal. Who is the Steelers' number 3 receiver? Is it James Washington? He needs to start playing like a number 3. I think, to me, that's the biggest concern if you're a Steeler fan, is where's the help at the number 3 receiver position? Is Moncrief going to start playing better? His dislocated finger has to be healed by now. And I think they should have went out and gotten Tyrell Williams in free agency last year. He's doing so many great things in Oakland. I know that they're great at drafting receivers, but they could use another veteran wideout right now. They shouldn't have settled on Moncrief. They should have spent more money and gotten Williams. That's my opinion there.
Well, I tell you what, though, their second pick overall in the draft with Deontay Johnson, I think right now he's been the guy who's been really stepping up there along with Spencer, I think. And you know what the thing is about a guy like James Washington, I mean, this is a guy who worked his butt off to get himself in shape during the offseason. He's still not having a bad year, but I mean, you got Juju Smith-Schuster, who's barely doing enough to lead his team in receptions and still take top of the league in the NFL. But I think those are just the only things I would say right there in that regard, is that, James Washington, I'm getting a little concerned as he's starting to take a step back right now at this point in time, and just maybe because of the way they're calling the offense. But one last thing, and I'll let you out here. I'll get you right back to the game. I'm sure you keep an eye on it. But right now, the Steelers, as you mentioned, you said you got a lot optimistic right now. I know there's still a little skepticism about still trying to make the playoffs, considering how disastrous their start went for them. But they got a chance right now. If they can keep it going, just take care of their business, get some help along the way. I mean, they're only a game out from the final wild card spot, and then you're still 2 games out of the AFC North. So that's pretty decent shape versus 2013, where they will regress to a 2-5 at this point. So over under right now on a scale of 1 to 10, that they can become the second team out of 12 teams since the 1976 Steelers to make the playoffs, starting off 1-4. So they're 1 out of 12 teams that made the playoffs after having a 1-4 start, even though they had 5 shutouts. Probably arguably one of the dominating Steelers teams they have all time. What do you think about this current group of 1 to 10? Where you put it at?
Defense all time?
No. I mean the Steelers. So since the 76 team was the only team to make the playoffs starting 1-4, 11 other teams have failed outside of that. So do you think the Steelers can become the second team? And if so, on a scale of 1 to 10, where do you put their odds of making the playoffs after starting off 1-4 the way they did?
Well, I think they're the second best team that's ever started 1-4 for sure. But if you had to look at
the odds,
well, let's look at it. Let's break it down. So there's only one team that's going to come out of the playoffs in the AFC North. That's it. I mean, there's only one team. So it's either going to be the Steelers or it's going to be the Ravens. So you look at the AFC West or the East. I think Buffalo is going to get out, and I think New England. So there's 2 teams. I think one team most likely is going to get out. It's going to probably come down to either Houston or Pittsburgh. If there are 2 teams that get out of the North, I think for sure only one team is going to get out of the West. So from that perspective, you gotta like your chances because, like I said, the AFC in general is just weaker than the NFC. So, I'm looking at the standings right now. I think New England and Buffalo both make the playoffs. There are 2 teams that are in. The South, I think 2 teams can make it in there. The AFC, only one team's going to make it. So I think for the Steelers, they either have to win their division, which right now they're 2 games out, but they're going to play the Ravens again. And Ravens have a tough second half of schedule coming up. And I think it's going to come down to either that or, Buffalo or Houston. And again, they played Buffalo late in the season. So I think the Steelers, if I had to rate their playoff odds right now, I would say it's 40%, 35%. They're not going to make it. I think their playoff odds are 35% right now because
35% that they won't make it.
They won't make it. They're going
Okay.
to have to be 3 games better than the Bills. 2.5 games better than Houston. I mean, there's quite a few teams ahead of them right now. They're going to have to move past. I think they can. I absolutely think they can. And if they win this next game, I'll go up to 40%. If they beat the Rams, I'll put it at 55%. I'll say over 50%. But I don't see a non-Ben team making the playoffs. I think 9-7 could maybe get them in. Maybe they're going to lose at least 3 more games down the stretch. I don't know exactly which ones. I think they're better than Cleveland and Cincinnati, but I could see them dropping one of those 3 games during that middle portion of the season. I mean, they absolutely shouldn't lose to the Jets, in Week 16. I don't care that the game's in New York. They're going to have to face a tough, Ravens team in Baltimore in Week 17. They're going to and they got to still have to face the Bills. I mean, there's so many tough games they have left. But yeah, I think it's very possible they get to 9-7, but I don't like their playoff chances. But that being said, I don't think anything would be. I don't think where this team is right now, if they finished 8-8, I wouldn't say it's a bad season at all. 7-9, meh. I wouldn't love it. But I think if they finish between 7-9 and 9-7 and don't suffer any significant injuries that could hurt them for next season, I think Steelers fans should be content with this season. Because I think the upside of this team is so big. They've got young playmakers now on the offensive side of the ball. That defense is going to be really good for the next 3 to 4. Be able to re-sign him, though. That's the fear. He's got 2 more years left under contract after this. But you got to keep him happy. You got to keep him in Pittsburgh. The question to me moving forward is the quarterback position. Is Ben going to come back strong? And is this offensive line? I mean, they got to start rebuilding this offensive line. It's getting older, and until we run the ball, Rosie Nix coming back, I think, really helped them. But yeah, they got to rebuild that offensive line because it's getting older quick.
Yeah, no, I definitely hear you on that, and that's one thing that Mason Rudolph is benefiting right now, despite the concussion, the shot that he took to the chin against the Ravens. That was a nasty, violent hit right there, and showed a lot of toughness right there. Obviously, was forced to miss the game, but other than that, yeah. I mean, at the same time, too, I got 2 words for you the rest of the way. You know who that is?
What's that?
Mike Tomlin. Despite all the criticism he's been getting, you cannot deny the fact that when he came to the Steelers organization, one of the things that he always said, and this was like around the 2nd season when they won their last Super Bowl, it may not always start out pretty, but at the end of the day, we'll come out fighting in the end. That's the thing you always got to appreciate about everything that's around his team, despite what contribute to keep this thing rolling with or without key guys or superstars along the way.
Yeah, no doubt. One thing, people like to do the comparing Tomlin and comparing Cowher and whatever. The one thing I'll say about Tomlin, I don't think his teams have ever quit on him.
No.
He's never had a losing season as a head coach. I think he's one of the best coaches in the NFL. He consistently produces solid teams. He consistently puts his teams in positions to win. And, maybe some fans are upset that they, were down to Miami early. But I think that was good. I think that was good that this team was hit with adversity.
Exactly.
Miami's still trying to win. I think their front office is tanking. But those guys on the field, that coaching staff, they're not tanking. They're trying to win. And you saw that. I think the Jets are actually, the Dolphins are actually going to beat the Jets on Sunday. But this week is crazy with picks and predictions. So, yeah, I would bet with caution this week if you're a gambling person. But yeah, I think that Coach Tomlin. I think Steeler fans are going to, no matter what position this team is in late in the season, you're still going to get, players out on the field that are going to work their hardest. And I wouldn't be surprised if they win this game, anything's possible. If they can beat the Colts 4-4 at the midpoint of the season, anything's possible. And I think, like I said, if they can get to 3-2 over the next 5 games, or 3-4, that would put them at 6-6. They're 6-6 with the 4th quarter of the season to go. They got to go 3-1 in that 4th quarter, which means you got to beat Buffalo, you got to beat the Rams. The Ravens. You got to beat the Dolphins. I think they got to beat the Jets. Those are. I mean, if they're 6-6 at 2 weeks to go, I would really like
Yeah.
their odds of at least getting 9 wins, making the playoffs. If 9 wins is good enough, again, I think Houston's a good team, and I think I don't think 9 wins is going to be enough to make the playoffs this season. It'll just depend on whether or not 9 wins is enough. If it is, I think the Steelers might make it. If not, then they'll have a 9-win season. That 2000 was the last time they didn't make the playoffs, and they won that many games. So it's happened before where they have 9 wins and don't make the playoffs. But if that happened, then I wouldn't be that upset as a Steeler fan because they started 0-3, 1-4, 9-7. No matter how you slice, it's a great season for this team.
Yeah. No, definitely I'm with you, and definitely got a lot to be encouraged about. I mean, you definitely want to see a glimpse to your future right now. I mean, they're getting it right now, first and foremost, with Ben being gone for the season. I mean, of course, to start off with, even though he's still got a couple more years left on his deal, but I mean, his throwing elbow right now is kind of like having an engine go bad on a car right now. Not really too likely you're going to overcome odds like that and still try and be close to the same guy he is. But, I mean, we'll see. I'm not going to rule anything out. But other than that, it's my pleasure having you once again on the Metal Steel podcast. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, he can be followed on Twitter at Bryan DeArdo as well as at CBS Sports. And Bryan, thanks for spending the time. Enjoy the rest of the World Series game. And who you got the rest of the way for tonight, by the way? Big Strokes for fishing.
Washington. My cousin lives there. I got family that are Washington fans. Now my brother-in-law is a Houston fan, so I hope he's not listening. I'm a Yankee fan, so it doesn't really matter to me. But yeah, I'd like to see Washington win just from the standpoint they haven't won it yet. It's not looking good, though, but we'll see. It's exciting to have a Game 7, though. I'll say that for sure.
Well, 1-0 is still makeable. It's not like it's a couple of runs, though. It's only bottom of the 4th right now, so we'll see. It's still a lot of baseball left to be played. Bryan, my man, always a pleasure having you. Stay warm this coming winter, and keep the great work. Hopefully we can do this again and stay in touch more. Thanks a lot, my man.
Well, you keep keeping those Steeler fans educated, my man. You do great work, and hope to talk to you again soon.
Likewise, man. Thank you, sir. Have a good night.
You too.
And once again, that was Bryan DeArdo of CBS Sports. And, yeah, you definitely got a lot to be skeptic over here right now. I mean, with the way things have gone. But, I mean, at the same time, we'll see what happens and how everything plays out. We're going to take a pause real quick on the Metal Steel podcast when I get back. I'm going to recap the Steelers and Dolphins game and give you the latest injury report. This is the Metal Steel podcast. Me, Charles, Prodigy. Richey. You can follow me on Twitter at Prodigy Richey, as well as at Metal Steel CJR and On Deck CSR, which I'm also a host of On Deck on ChicagolandSportsRadio.com. Don't go anywhere.